What if I told you that humanity's deepest problem with God is not his anger, not his wrath, not his judgment, but his mercy? What if I told you that what truly unsettles us, what truly feels unfair, is not when God punishes, but when he forgives? We are ready to accept a God of justice, because justice feels logical, symmetrical, safe. But a God who forgives, a God who welcomes back the traitor, the addict, the thief, the hypocrite, the betrayer, the one who fails over and over, that God shakes us to our very core. And that God is the scandal we call grace. Grace is the most beautiful word in the Christian faith, and also the most offensive. It is a door left wide open when we would rather bolt the lock. It is God stooping low when we demand he stand tall in holiness. It is love that runs after the prodigal even while he reeks of pig food. It is Jesus hanging on a cross, not to condemn his executioners, but to say, "Father, forgive them." That word, grace, is the very heartbeat of the gospel, and yet it's the very thing we resist the most. Think about it. We say we want a merciful God. We sing about it, we pray about it, we cry out for it when we fall. But when mercy is extended to someone else, someone we believe doesn't deserve it, our hearts recoil. We cry out for fairness. We protest for justice. We whisper under our breath, "Not them, Lord. Not after what they did." And in that protest, in that recoil, we see our problem with God laid bare. Because his mercy is too wide. His forgiveness is too open. His grace is too scandalous. And that is why grace divides. Grace offends. Grace feels dangerous. Because if God forgives the one who failed, what happens to our sense of moral order? If God embraces the sinner who comes crawling back for the 100th time, what happens to our carefully built systems of reward and punishment? If God throws a feast for the prodigal, what does he owe the elder brother who stayed behind, obeyed the rules, never broke the law? The truth is, grace unsettles us because it levels us. It tells us that our righteousness is no ladder to climb, no ticket to purchase, no bargaining chip to play. It tells us that the thief crucified beside Jesus, who wasted his entire life in crime, can whisper one plea, "Remember me," and walk with Christ into paradise the same day. It tells us that the workers hired at the last hour are paid the same as those who toiled since morning. It tells us that the woman caught in adultery, dragged before a bloodthirsty crowd, is not condemned but released. It tells us that forgiveness is not calculated, not rationed, not earned, but poured out in reckless abundance. And that is what we can't stand. Because we are obsessed with keeping score. Humanity thrives on balance sheets, on payback, on measuring who deserves what. We believe in eye for eye, tooth for tooth. We comfort ourselves with the belief that the good will be rewarded and the bad punished. And then grace breaks in and blows the whole system apart. Grace says, "You are loved not because of what you did, not because of what you failed to do, but because of who God is." Grace says, "You can run 1,000 miles in the wrong direction, and still the Father waits on the porch, scanning the horizon, ready to embrace you." Grace says, "Your sin may be great, but my mercy is greater still." And this is where our problem with God begins. Because deep down, we do not want to be saved this way. We want control. We want to stand before God with receipts, with a resume, with proof that we earned our place. We want heaven to feel like wages, not like a gift. And God says no. Salvation is gift, or it is nothing at all. Forgiveness is scandal, or it is no forgiveness at all. Grace is unfair, because grace is free. But free grace is not cheap grace. It cost Jesus his life. It cost the cross. It cost blood poured out to the last drop. And that is what gives grace its gravity. God's mercy is not softness. It is not indulgence. It is not blind tolerance. It is the justice of heaven colliding with the mercy of God, and the collision point is the cross. At Calvary, justice is not cancelled, it is satisfied. But satisfied in such a way that the guilty are set free, while the innocent one takes their place. And this, too, offends us. Because we want the cross to be a symbol of wrath, but God makes it a fountain of mercy. Pause and think about the last time you failed. The last time you said you would never do it again, and then you did. The last time you felt ashamed, guilty, dirty, unworthy to even pray. What did you imagine God felt toward you in that moment? Did you picture him angry, arms crossed, waiting to punish? Or did you picture him running to meet you, arms open, saying, "I know. And I forgive you still"? That is the stumbling block of grace. That is the scandal we can hardly accept. Because it's too generous. Too relentless. Too much. And yet, without it, we have nothing. Without grace, Christianity collapses into mere morality, a code of ethics with no power to heal. Without grace, we are forever chained to our failures, forever enslaved to our past, forever judged by our worst day. Without grace, the gospel is not good news, it's just another burden. But with grace, everything changes. Grace is the father sprinting down the road before the prodigal can even finish his apology. Grace is the shepherd leaving 99 sheep to chase one lost wanderer. Grace is Jesus looking Peter in the eye after 3 denials and asking not for explanation but for love. Grace is forgiveness without limit, love without measure, mercy without end. And here's the ultimate twist: the very thing we resist most from God is the very thing we most desperately need. We don't struggle to believe in a God of power. We struggle to believe in a God of mercy. We don't struggle to believe God can judge. We struggle to believe He can forgive us even when we fail again and again. That is why grace feels dangerous, because if it is true, then even my worst failure cannot stop God's love. And if it is true, then I have no excuse not to extend that same grace to others. But extending grace terrifies us. Because forgiving the one who hurt us feels like betrayal. Welcoming back the one who betrayed us feels like weakness. Showing mercy to the undeserving feels impossible. And yet that is exactly what God has done for us. And in calling us His children, He calls us to live the same way. So the cliffhanger of grace is this: will we receive it, or will we reject it? Will we let ourselves be loved beyond what feels fair, or will we cling to our ledgers and keep score until the end? Will we allow God to scandalize us with mercy, or will we demand a justice that leaves us all condemned? Because make no mistake, the hardest thing about God is not His justice. It is His mercy. The hardest thing to believe is not that God will judge the world, but that He will forgive it. The most difficult truth of Christianity is not hell, but heaven. Not wrath, but love. Not punishment, but pardon. And that is why grace remains the great scandal, the dividing line, the stumbling block, the treasure hidden in a field. It is the one thing that offends our pride even as it saves our souls. And it leaves us with a choice: will we join the elder brother outside the feast, sulking at the unfairness of it all? Or will we step inside, swallow our pride, and sit at the table of a Father whose mercy will always be bigger than our failures? Grace is dangerous. Grace is offensive. Grace is unfair. And grace is the only hope we have.